Hey everybody, you're watching KTAL News Now. I'm your host Anthony Mocklin, and today we have a very special guest as we welcome Carmen Turner Schott as she talks about her new book, Astrological Energy: Maximize the Power of Your Birth Chart. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. I love astrology because it's energy. And most normal people, they wonder, how do you know this about me? When I would tell them, oh, you're a Taurus or you're a Capricorn, and this is what it means. They're like, how do you know this? And what I realize is a basic way to explain it to people that are interested is to explain it as energy. Because, when you walk into the room, you kind of feel a certain energy sometimes, if there's a tension or if people are happy, and that's what astrology is and why it works is that it's energy, just like everything in the universe is energy.
So how did you end up becoming an astrologer? Like what made you sort of like want to
Yeah. So I was raised in the Midwest in the Bible Belt, so I was not raised to believe in any of these new age strange things. But when I was 16, I had a strange experience with a glowing ball of light in my doorway. And I came back from a basketball game and it was great. We won. I went to bed and I always had to have my bed looking out the door so I could see with the nightlight. I was always kind of imaginative and a little bit scared of the dark. And I went to bed and I woke up and there was a large glowing yellow white orb there and I couldn't move. I couldn't scream for my mother. I kept trying to yell and all I could do was control my mind. And I just watched it and now I hit myself because back then I was terrified, right? I'm like, what is this? I have no idea. And it was there for hours. And I finally was able to speak. It's like it released me, and I yelled, Mom, look in my doorway. And she saw it too. And for the first time in my life, she believed me, because I always dreamed things that would happen, and I'd have these feelings that would come true. And I never understood why I was the way I was. So after that experience, I went to this little bookstore and I bought books on angels, spirit guides, and astrology. And I got my first book in astrology in 1993. And I taught myself how to do charts by hand. And it became my passion because it validated my personality. And I was going to be a psychology major. I was planning to do that in college anyway. So it just really went hand in hand with my passion. So I started doing charts for fun, just to practice. And then it became a business. And I've been doing it since I was 19. And I've always done astrology on the side. And I'm a licensed therapist. So I bring this tool of self-awareness into my sessions with people to help them heal on a deeper level. Because when I was in grad school, get my master's in social work, people would cry. When I would do their chart, they would react. And in 1 hour, it was deeper than 8 hours of deep psychotherapy and a lot less expensive. So I said, I want to do this. And so it's always been my passion. And I've always kind of kept it separate from my normal therapy job until now. I'm really doing this full time now and bringing it into my writing and my teaching. And I do astrological consultations. I do, support for businesses. I do a lot of things with astrology, and it's really a map of the soul. I believe it works to help us understand ourselves and others. A lot of people think it's confusing and they don't really understand it. So I try to write in a very basic way. So any of my books, especially Your Astrological Energy, you can read it and you'll understand it because I write very simplistically and practically for the normal person to understand what the heck is astrology. That's kind of my forte, so to speak.
and to kind of continue that, like can you explain like what astrology, like why it's so important and how it can help people?
Yeah, so the thing is if you think of this, at the moment, time, place of your birth, when you're looking up at the sky from Earth, all of the planets are in a certain star constellation, which are the 12 signs. This is astronomy, this is science, and they're all in a certain area of the sky. So what astrologers do is we break that sky up into 12 sections like a pie. We take a picture of the sky and we put it on a piece of paper, and it looks like a wheel with all these symbols, and there's 12 sections which are houses which represent areas of life like health, diet, career, relationships, family, travel. And all your planets at your moment, time, place of birth will be in one of those signs and in one of those areas of life. And we interpret the energies of those traits, and that is your soul mission. That's your main personality, who you really are. And it's really interesting because even twins can have a very different emotional nature, even though they're born almost the exact same time, because the moon changes signs every 2 to 3 days. So if you're born hours apart, that moon sign could shift. And I see that a lot. And they're like, well, we look alike, we act alike, except emotionally. He's more into relationships and I want my freedom, because the twins have different moon signs. So there's a lot that goes into it. But what it is, it's that map of the sky. And what I believe is that our soul chooses to be born at a certain time, place of birth to learn our lessons and to fulfill our destiny and our karma. And we kind of choose when we are going to be born. And like if you're a C-section baby, or, my daughter was a month early, all of those births are meant to be. You're not born by chance. And so that karmic pattern, that birth chart, which you can go to astro.com and get a free wheel, and you can see your chart, what I'm talking about, and start researching it, looking up different things, learning the symbols, because it really is a symbolic language. And we just give symbols to the signs, to the planets, and we analyze it, and it is very psychological. It's a psychological tool. Even Carl Jung studied it, and the ancient philosophers, in ancient times, and astrology is even in the Bible. And that's what really resonated with me when I started studying it. I was like, wow, okay, why are the fixed signs of the zodiac in the book of Revelation, the symbols? And then I would travel in Europe to these Catholic churches and see the zodiac symbols in the churches. Washington, D.C. has zodiacs hidden all over the city, right? The symbols of the signs. So it's like part of our ancestry and our ancient culture that was lost, I think. And now it's becoming a very popular thing again. There's TikTok astrologers, there's all these people that are really into astrology. And so it's becoming very much mainstream. But, when I did it, it was not a popular thing. People did not understand it very well. And they thought, oh, you're an astrologer? I don't even know what that means. And I don't believe in that. Now people are like, oh, I'm interested. Even if they don't know anything about it, they're open-minded to it. They're more open-minded.
And you mentioned like soul missions,
Yes.
and I was just curious, like what could you kind of explain that a little bit more, like for our viewers and everything?
Absolutely. So everyone has their birth chart, and in that chart, we have certain strengths. We have certain spiritual abilities, gifts. Some people are born artistic. Some people are born natural, charisma, and they're amazing actors on stage. Some people can write. Some people can do mathematical equations and solve how to travel to Mars, right? So there's all these really cool traits that we have in our soul. And what happens is those traits that we have, we're meant to use them to fulfill our destiny, which is the north node of the moon. This is a certain placement that is in, everyone has a north node. Everyone has, it looks like headphones. It's shaped like a headphone image in your birth chart. That sign that the north node is in the house that it's in, is what our soul is here to learn. If anything else, if you don't learn about your whole chart, find out where your north node is, because that is your soul's mission this lifetime. We've already mastered the south node, and we bring those traits and abilities into this life, but we're meant to learn to balance the north and south nodes of the moon. That is the most important thing in our chart, and I've experienced it myself. And if you think about this, when you're age 27 to 30, everyone on Earth has what's called a Saturn return. And a lot of people talk about that and are like, wow, I got married, I got divorced, I had a baby, I moved, I changed careers. All of us go through these really major changes during that Saturn return, because it takes that planet 30 years to return to where it was when we were born. That is the first time in our life that we start feeling the North Node. We're living in the past until age 30. And then after age 30, we start naturally getting into our North Node through experience, through life challenges. Nothing happens by chance. It's all to get us into that North Node and to learn it. So I tell people, find out what sign your North Node is in, read about that sign, and it's not just your sun or moon. It's very deep. It could be a completely different sign than your sun or moon sign or rising. So read about that, and what house it's in is where that energy is going to be expressed in your life. So, for instance, I'm meant to be a Scorpio. I'm a North Node Scorpio. And I thought, how am I ever going to do this? Because it is very different and you don't feel comfortable with it because it's not your natural personality. But you'll learn to do it. And I always tell people, don't worry, don't force it because the universe will get you in your node before your second Saturn return, which happens at age 57 to 60. So every time I do a chart for someone that's over 60, they are doing their node and they're in it. So we get there no matter what. So it's kind of destiny. It really is a destiny. And all the things that happen to us get us there.
And out of all the things that, in your experience with astrology, what made you want to write this book specifically? And could you like share more like what readers can expect to see in it?
Sure. So this is my biggest, thickest book I've ever wrote. I spent a lot of time on this one because I wanted to teach people how to harness the energies of all 12 signs. Because people often say, Carmen, I don't have any Scorpio, or why don't I have any planets in the third house? What is that? Is that bad? And they ask me these questions. And so I wrote this book in a basic way to teach the reader how to harness Aries energy, how to harness Taurus, Scorpio. I give keywords, I give tips. All of us can harness the signs' energies in our birth chart because somewhere in our chart we have all 12 signs. So if you want to be more Aries and you don't have any planets there, but you have Aries on the fourth house, you can read about that in my book. You can look up, Aries transits. You can look up Aries sun sign, Aries moon sign, all the different planets in Aries. You can look up each chapter. You're going to use it because I'm going to teach in the introduction how to do a basic chart. You don't need to know anything to read my book. I teach everything in the intro. You can get your birth chart. Once you have that, you'll look up all your planets. You'll use the entire book. Okay, my son's in the 12th house. Okay, I'm going to go to the 12th house chapter. And then you'll read about what does sun in the 12th house mean. Then moon. Oh, my moon's in Aries. Okay, you go to the Aries chapter, moon in Aries. And you'll get to also learn about the transits. And what transits are, I include that in this book, is what's going on in the sky right now. So, we just had a new moon in Cancer. The sun is in Cancer right now. Jupiter's in Cancer, some major Cancer water, nurturing mother, home, and family energy going on. And so it's a really big deal right now. So we take a picture of the sky right now and we put it on top of your birth chart. And it's a wheel that goes on top. And I can see where all the planets are transiting the different areas of your life. And then I can see, okay, wow, you have Pluto in the fourth house of home and family. I just told someone this yesterday. Have you had a loss in the family? Has someone passed? Have you moved? Have you thought about moving? They're like, yes, both. Because those transits are energies that trigger events. And so it's good to see each day, where is the moon? Because the moon changes every 2 to 3 days, and I can feel it. One day, when I start studying astrology, I'm like, wow, this is so accurate because one day I'll feel really lazy and I don't want to do anything and I just want to eat and lounge around. And then the next day I'm go, go, go. I'm wanting to go drive, go to the movies, be active, social. So the moon signs will affect you in a different way based on your chart. And you'll start being able to see that. And even the full moon, it's research based. I mean, cops, police officers, ER nurses tell me, I used to work in crisis intervention, that the most busiest day, month of the year is the couple days of the full moon. That's when there's more accidents, more people having arguments and conflict because the moon affects our emotions and it heightens them. It makes us more irritable, more sensitive, more reactive, just like it affects the tides of the ocean. So I do believe that, and people do resonate with that when I try to explain that to them in a normal, basic way. I'm like, don't you feel different on the full moon? Well, now that you mention it, I do, Carmen. Why is that? And I'll tell them. So my goal is to open minds and to show that astrology can help us heal and transform our lives and become more resilient. When you can tap into your sign strengths, you can use those for the good and for, manifesting what you want and working towards your goals. Or you can work on harnessing some energies that you may lack in your chart. Like if you lack the fire element, you're going to tend to draw fire people and you're not going to be comfortable with it. Or if you have a lot of water, you might be more sensitive and emotional and get your feelings hurt a lot. So, what are some things we can do for that? Developing boundaries, self-protection, grounding exercises. So that's kind of what I do in all my books is write and give tips on how to harness your strengths, how to, embrace them and understand them. And then this book, it's all about learning about all of the signs, all of the energies, and how you can use them in your birth chart, in your life, in every way.
And you mentioned earlier that you were a licensed social worker as
Yeah.
well. How do you sort of combine astrology with, helping others heal in your professional life?
Sure. A lot of my research has been on trauma survivors. I worked in the Air Force with sexual assault victims for a long time, for 25 years, and now I've retired and I'm doing this full time. But when I did that and when I did private practice, which I'm still doing now, I will know someone's birth date and year because that's the basics. I may not, tell them about astrology unless it naturally comes up or they find out what I do or they're interested. Of course, I don't push that on anyone, but it is something that I have in my toolbox to know, okay, I'm sitting here with a Capricorn. I know Capricorn energy. So when I know how to, work with them, it helps me connect with people's personalities and tap into what I know they need. Like I know a Capricorn's going to be a little bit resistant and a little bit cautious about opening up. So I'll take my time with them. I know it's going to take a little bit more time for them to trust me. Or if it's a Pisces, I know they're going to be wide open. They're going to lack boundaries and be talking a lot and sharing a lot of their emotions with me. So I can teach them and how to ground themselves, how to protect their energy. And so I do that in a subtle way. So it's a tool for me to really understand my clients in a deeper way. And it gives me perspective. It's just another tool in the toolbox. Like I say, I'm a certified trauma specialist. I have all these trainings in the mental health field, but the most powerful tool that I've ever done is astrology. And that's why I've stuck with it and I write books about it and I would like to bring it into the mainstream, more research based. I do have some research about trauma with trauma survivors, and most people that have trauma have a lot of eighth house planets or a lot of Scorpio. And I can see that in a chart. Or Pluto is in a certain place that signifies maybe some traumatic events. And so when I validate that for them, they're like, wow, that makes sense. They don't feel so much like a victim of circumstance. They know, okay, this happened to me to make me stronger and more resilient. And I use astrology as a tool to kind of validate their experiences in a spiritual way, but also give them the tips and practical counseling tools that they can use to heal, which is forgiveness, letting go, getting counseling themselves, working on their ancestral trauma, their familial trauma. A lot of trauma is a family thing. It kind of repeats itself. So breaking those cycles, I can use astrology to show, okay, there's a cycle here with your mom, your dad, and you. Maybe it's addiction. I mean, I see that in astrology as well. Okay, dad was an alcoholic, grandfather's alcoholic. This client's dating people that are not healthy, that are alcoholics. She's trying to rescue them. These things help me in a deeper way to help people in a very transformative way, really.
And what are some things you hope people can learn from reading your book?
So I would love for people to pre-order my book and read my book, Your Astrological Energy, because it's going to help you learn more about yourself and others. The number one goal for me to write books is to help people verify that they're not alone, understand themselves better, and understand people in their lives better, because that's going to enhance our relationships with our mom, our dad, our grandparents, our kids, our co-workers. I can't tell you how many times astrology has saved me in the workplace because I'm able to connect with people and understand them like, okay, I'm feeling intense Aries energy here. Okay. I know how to handle this. They're being blunt, they're being direct, they're being assertive. That's them. So they like that. So I have to be that way with them a little more direct, more, to the point. You'll know. And then some people want to talk to you for hours and you just listen. They want someone to listen. So I would use these things and then people would end up finding out about me and then they want me to, look at their chart, even though they weren't believers. And then they said, Carmen, this is really accurate. And so I just would use it in the workplace and even little things like I tell coworkers, hey, be careful about what you email right now because Mercury is retrograde, the planet of communication, and it messes with technology and people can misperceive what you say and do and take it wrong. So be very cautious, everything you put in writing and what you speak. And people started noticing it. And then they'd say, Carmen, is Mercury retrograde? I like, yeah, it is, and so people in my office would laugh and I really have been doing this since I was 19 and I live it. Like I live astrology. It's like a part of who I am. So I hope people like the book and they can learn more about themselves and others and that it will validate their own experience. That's what I really hope.
And for people who are already sort of like in tune with astrology, maybe they have similar experience, but they don't know everything. Like what sort of things could they learn about that they might not have known before?
That's a good question. I think one of the biggest things is that, you're more than your sun, moon, and rising sign. And I think one of those things we talked about earlier is getting a knowledge of the nodes. Learning about the north node and the south node is crucial. Also, learning about transit charts, how to do those, learning about different placements, different aspects in the chart. Sometimes, all the planets are interacting with each other, which in the middle of your birth chart, you'll see all these lines. They're called squares, sextiles, conjunctions, things like that. So, learning all those like detailed small things can really enhance your ability to understand yourself and your friends if you're doing charts or other people because like the other day I met someone and I usually can pick up on someone's rising sign really well, but they had Pluto conjunct the ascendant. And I thought, wow, and I felt Scorpio from them. I'm like, but they weren't a Scorpio rising, but they had Pluto sitting there. That they're Plutonian. They're more like a Scorpio. And when I told them that, they're like, yeah, because they did not fit with their rising sign trait. So things like that are nuances that you can learn when you learn about conjunctions, which is a planet conjuncts another planet. That's very powerful because it means those energies are working as one in a chart, and that changes and makes it more intense. And also, looking at what's called your solar return chart, which is fun. It's your birthday chart. So depending, it's going to be the same date time that you're born, but if you're in a different wherever you're located during your birthday each year, that's the place you're going to put in, and you'll calculate a wheel. You can analyze that wheel to see what the year is going to be like for you. You can also learn, which is really fun and interesting. I've done this for some people that want to develop a business or start a new business or a new adventure, a new trip or whatever, travel trip or a retreat. They'll like, Carmen, what are the best dates for me to start my business? Astrologers can look at that. We can look at, okay, what dates are you looking at? When are you signing papers? We can give tips. What are the best dates to get surgery, to have medical procedures, have babies? I've had people come to me for that. And I can use the charts to see that. So learning about all those different things will just enhance your knowledge of helping others.
And where can people, pre-order your book that are interested?
Yes, my book is available on Llewellyn Worldwide, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, where all books are sold. So it's online out there. Your Astrological Energy. It releases August 8th, but it's available for pre-order right now. Love for people to follow me on Facebook, Deep Soul Divers Astrology. And then I have my website, carmenturnershot.com.
Is there anything I didn't ask you today that you wanted to touch more on?
No, this was wonderful. This was great.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. This is
Looking
great.
forward to your book.
Appreciate it.
And if you haven't yet, be sure to visit ktalnews.com where you can get your local stories, breaking news, trending topics. You can catch us on KTAL News Now, Monday through Friday, every day at 1 p.m. But for now, I'm Anthony Mocklin, and thank you for joining us.